My name is Isil Borlasa. Thank you for joining us for another panel here at C3 Converse presented by Nielsen. I'm coming to you all the way live from the 562 in Long Beach, California. And in my growing practice to disrupt colonial structures, I want to acknowledge and uplift the Tongva and Quiche nations, the original stewards of this land. You are now joining us for a conversation for a group of filmmakers from two programs. This conversation is called Visions to Real. If you would like to read the captions for this conversation, we are dropping a link in the chat now. Click on that and it will bring you to another window which will have the audio transcript for you. Moving on in the housekeeping messaging, we'd like to thank everyone for making this festival possible, most especially our sponsors. So special thanks to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, Sony Pictures Entertainment, Comcast NBC Universal, California Arts Council, SAG-AFTRA Producers Industry Advancement and Cooperative Fund, the National Endowment for the Arts, and HBO and Warner Media. And a special thank you for all of our community partners for their valuable work and for continuing to support visual communications all throughout the year. So now let's start the artist conversation. As I said earlier, this is Visions to Real, which is a combination of two shorts programs here at the festival. The first program is #Life2020, and the second program is What Would You Do 2020, aka WWYD, that's what the kids say. And Visions to Real, its legacy is part of VC as a space to create a platform for filmmakers emerging at the university or just out of the university level. As far back as I can remember, we've featured filmmakers that have come out of UCLA, Pitzer, NYU Tisch, Chapman, USC, Cal State Long Beach, and beyond. Today, we have a fantastic lineup of filmmakers of all different perspectives from all different corners of the nation. And we are proud to sort of add them to the legacy that we've had with this program. And, you know, in that legacy, we're proud to incubate and uplift filmmakers like Seth Ronquillo, who debuted their film, in my notes here, who debuted their film in 2017. Their film was called Story of Self, and they were in a program that was programmed and curated by June Kausith, who helped sort of shepherd this program into what we have today. So let's move into a conversation with the filmmakers. Let's meet them first. I'm just gonna go round robin. Can we go ahead and I'll just call you out by name, and each filmmaker just let us know where you're zooming in from and what title you are working with today. So first up, we have Emery.
Hi, Seal. Thanks for having us. My name is Emery Chow Johnson. My pronouns are they, them. I'm zooming in from the land of the Tongva and Gabrielino, or Los Angeles, and I'm here representing Bind, which is in a short film program, #Life.
Nice. Let's move on to Lan.
Hi everyone, my name is Lan. I use she, her pronouns, and I am calling in from the Bay Area of California, which is Ohlone land. And I am the director of Fighting for Family and a co-director on Cambodia Town Not for Sale with Brandon.
Thank you. Let's move on to Kitty.
Hi everyone, my name is Kitty and my pronouns are also she, hers, and I am zooming in from Tongva land in Los Angeles, and I directed Golden Boy.
Thank you. And let's welcome Nolan.
Hi everyone, I'm Nolan. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm coming from Chula Vista, California, and I'm the director of Novena.
Thanks so much. And let's move on to Reno.
Hi, my name is Reno Kodama. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I'm calling from Ohlone land, also known as the Bay Area. I'm one of the directors of Growing Movements.
Great. And let's move on to Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm calling in from Glendale, California, and my pronouns are she and her, and I directed The 80-Year-Old Rock Climber.
Thank you. And let's welcome Hal.
Hi, my name is Hal. I'm the director of The Chef. I'm currently in LA, and my pronoun is he and him.
Thank you. And let's move on to my somewhat neighbor, Brandon.
Hey everyone, thank you all for having me. My name is Brandon. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm zooming in from Long Beach, California, and I'm one of the co-directors for Cambodia Town Not for Sale.
Thank you, Brandon. And let's welcome Amailina.
Hi, I'm Amailina. I'm stationed in San Diego, California, and my film is Intermission. My pronouns are she and her.
Thank you, Mylena. And the next filmmaker on deck is Haris.
Hey everyone, my name is Hadis. Pronouns are he and him, and I'm the director of LAAPFF. I'm zooming in from the Greater Toronto region in Canada. So hello everyone.
Oh, you're in Canada. I didn't realize. I'm glad to have you. And this is one of the nicer perks of having virtual programming, that you can be here with us. Let's move on to Patrick.
Hi everyone, my name's Patrick. I go by he, him, his, and I am also calling from Los Angeles, San Gabriel more specifically, and I worked on Stasis as the director.
Thank you. And let's welcome Josh.
Hey guys, I'm Josh. Thank you all for being here. It's really great to see all of you guys. I directed The Other Side, and I'm calling in from the East Coast in Northern Virginia, just outside DC.
So we have filmmakers from all over, and then me as an oldie. It's nice to see these different perspectives of different filmmakers of color who are now sort of making these wonderful works at even a younger, sort of earlier stage in their career. So congratulations to all of you for creating these works. Why don't we now jump into the films in #life? I'd like to start my conversation here with Emery. With your film Bind. Emery, I've talked to you a little bit, maybe earlier in the year, just when quarantine came down. And if you haven't yet seen this film yet, please do check it out. It's available on the watch site all throughout the month. Bind is a very tender narrative that at first glance seems to be about expression. But for me, it really resonated as a mother-child conflict, and you do it in such an intimate, nuanced way. Can you tell us about how you came to sort of create the script, and what is the inspiration for the project?
Thank you for that question. I think in terms of creating the script, I really wanted to look into creating multidimensional characters in terms of the mother and child. And I think a part of, I guess, growing into adulthood is kind of realizing your parents are not just like your parent, but they're also their own person. So kind of bringing that into the narrative as well. And kind of the inspiration I had behind the film was that I had watched some other documentary work about queer and trans API, about the queer and trans API community, and kind of didn't really see that represented in scripted work. So that was one of the inspirations behind that. But at the same time, in terms of creating something so short, I wanted to be able to grasp something that was that you could feel immediately, because a lot of, I think, these milestone moments in someone's transition, like when someone's like uses your name you want to go by for the first time, I feel like as you kind of go into your transition, maybe 4 or 5 years later, living as your authentic self, sometimes these memories kind of seep into each other. So I also kind of just wanted to make something that honors like that first moment, and kind of for people who are part of the queer and trans community can kind of transport themselves back to those firsts, and kind of how something so small was something so big at a certain point of time in their life.
And if there are guests in the audience who may have not seen the film yet, I didn't want to lead with a synopsis right away, because I've told you the texture of that almost conflict was the strongest for me. Why don't you share your synopsis a bit, just for folks who haven't yet seen?
Sure. So my short film, I guess the synopsis is Jules gets an unexpected visit from their mother and their chest binder. So it's a little bit about kind of the queer and trans Asian diaspora.
Thank you, Emery. I'm going to move on to another fantastic narrative, The Chef, with director Hao in the house. This one is a 2019 Student Academy Award winner, silver medal. This, in a very similar way, brings you right into a world that I'm not yet familiar with. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the synopsis, and I'll follow up with a question about your process?
Yes, thank you. So The Chef is about, well, it's set in future LA, about a Chinese chef teaching a robot how to cook Chinese food.
A robot how to cook Chinese food. So how did you decide to come up with this?
So it's not just me, right? Like, so I was the director, but then we also have 2 writers on the program, on the project, and it was part of my graduate thesis film at AFI. And my producer came to me with the concept of shooting something in the future in the sci-fi world, but also we wanted to embrace culture and tradition versus the futuristic technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I got the story, I found that I need to find that character-driven or like the most emotional part of the story. And at the time, right next to where I lived, there was this motel, and every day in the morning I go to school, I would have to pass by that area, and I found this elderly man there, like always sitting next to this very dumb little robot, the motel bot, and plays at the gate, and pretty much all he can do is to move a little bit and like repeatedly say welcome. That's all he can do. But then the elderly man just like had a little bench and sat next to it, and then like he will have this like traditional radio, and then like he will like twig on the radio channels, and every time the robot moves a little bit, he thought it's because of him, and he will be like so happy. And I was just like, wow, like that's so magical, so moving. And at the same time, I was so curious about where's his family, where does he come from, right? And then so we were talking with my team, and we were like, like nowadays I feel like from people, like we felt the communication among each other is becoming less and less, and we tend to always blame it on technology. But is it true, or is it just an excuse for us? So that's what we wanted to make this film about.
Thank you for bringing up the notion of tradition and passing down. Like Pooh's trying to like teach this robot how to check the oil, and those are things that are usually meant for human to human sort of like passing down, but you could really see the connection between the two. So congratulations. And I want to go back to that on your casting, because I love Mr. Lau. So I'd love to I'll dive into casting a little bit, but let's move into Novena, which actually also touches on tradition and touches on almost kind of like a generational thing, like parent to child. Nolan, can you talk to us on how you decided to kind of create this work and how you casted the work?
Okay, great. I think for me, it was treated as my undergraduate thesis at UCSD. And I started to realize, I think, that a lot of my films thematically were starting to look the same, right? Like they kind of started to, I think I'm telling this story a lot. I think this is something I need to get off my chest, I guess. Maybe I didn't realize it at the time. But
for folks who haven't yet seen the film, do you want to explain the synopsis a bit?
Okay, it's the film follows a family on the 40th day of novena for mourning, and the divide that grows between the members of the family on that day.
I was touched by I'm like, all right, novena. I wanted to see someone pray the rosary all the time, but then as I sort of marinate in it, novena is also sort of the repetition and sort of like, and literally sitting and mourning, and you feel that in your lead character, where you kind of feel like she's almost over it, and then she crests a little bit. How did you cast the sister and the brother and the mom?
Yeah, it was a normal process. Pretty much, it was important for me, I think, that we casted Filipino actors, because it was really, the story's so much about our community and what if you're in the community, I think you really understand it, right? Because the novena is really something that a lot of families go through, and it's never a fun process, but it's so important to a lot of people's healing process and just the family coming together, even if you're not religious. And yeah, Thea did a great job as the lead. This is actually the first film that she told me this is the first film that she was actually cast in to play like a directly Filipino character. Like before that, it would just be some I don't know, undisclosed
racially vague,
racially ambiguous character. But this is the first film, and I'm honored that this could be the project with that for her.
What touched my heart and kind of piqued my carb interest was the way food is present in it. And maybe years back, food was present in sort of culturally forward films as a means to put a stamp, like, this is Filipino. Now we're eating pancit. Now we're eating lumpia. But it was part of the characters. I got to know, how did you get access to the bakery? Is this something in your world, or?
Yeah, the bakery film, that was actually my family's bakery in National City. So a lot of the film is, of course, drawn not only from my life and from my family's life, and just kind of just like a melding of all these experiences. So yeah, filming that bakery sequence in the film was actually the very first thing I filmed, like in 2018, like way back, and that's kind of the glue, I guess, of the whole thing. Yeah.
The flour and the water and the glue. I'm going to now move on. We're going to move into documentaries now a bit. We'll go with Rena with Queering Movements. This is one that came out of the UCLA Ethno-Communications program, and UCLA has been a dear friend, and we're like closely connected with us here at Visual Communications. Reno, can you talk a little bit about your film team and how you decided to tell this story?
Yeah, so thank you, Asil. This film came out of Ethno Communications. My other director, Cece, isn't here, but Cece and our editor, Yen, was a big part of creating this film. And in terms of the themes, we were thinking about what it means to find community as a queer and trans person, but also how, like, the journey of embodying your like queer and transness through the art form of dance. And so we highlight Spun, who is a South Asian dancer who is also queer and trans, yeah, and their journey in terms of finding queer community through meeting other queer dancers in LA, and their performance called Hibiscus, which is which tells the story of like various deities, like the dancers embody different deities, and yeah.
When documentaries have like a singular subject, it's often really a personal dive into their life. What was their reaction when you guys approached them to sort of tell their story?
They were pretty receptive, I think. Yeah, I don't think like we had to, like, I don't know, try to convince them or anything. I think it helps that Cece, one of the directors, is also close friends with Spun. And so like that relation there is like already made. And I felt like I could really relate to Spun's story as like someone who is also a dancer, and like also does like different like classical dance. And so
congratulations on the work, because I do like the sort of varied visual you give us of them preparing and getting dressed and sort of the art direction behind them. So it's a really dynamic piece. So congrats on that. Let's move to another documentary that's also a sort of singular documentary subject portrayal. 80-year-old rock climber. Lisa, how did you find this man?
So funny enough, I was at a VC event, and he came to the event, and I was just, helping with the, the side, just organizing, and we ended up talking, and he was just so inspiring and compelling. He was living his best life at 80. He was in book clubs, and he was learning different languages, and he was rock climbing, and his personality was so infectious, but at the same time so inspiring, and not in an intentional way, that I was intrigued by him. And everything he was saying, I was hanging on to, and I was like, I think if he can inspire me in a moment of just having this quick conversation, I think there are so many people in life that think, oh, I'm too old to reinvent myself. I'm too old to do that. And so I was like, I need to get him on film. I need to share his story because I'm compelled, and I think it's inspiring. So that's how it all came about. And he's also a filmmaker in your digital history class. So he was all for it, and he was super excited. And above and beyond anything else, he was just so humbled that anyone would be interested in him. And so it was just a really fun project to work on. And even now I still see his wife and, you know, at different various events. And it's just really been a great opportunity to get to know somebody and get his perspective on life.
No, definitely. Yeah. In the BC space, those of us that get to sort of be around digital histories, we know George's name. After watching your film, I tried to do 2 pull-ups after George was saying, like, I could barely do 3. I'm like, I can't even do any. And this man is doing them at 77, I think he said in the film. So kudos to you for capturing these stories. Often people, when we want to capture stories of older adults, it kind of drifts to what were their perspective of like their government commentary growing up, or what was their commentary of the professional field that they're in. And this one really goes straight into sort of a personal perspective. And I think that's very valuable. And I'm happy to have that as part of the lineup this year.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on now. So now we're going to move away from personal, like singular documentaries, and we're going to go to larger community sort of tales. Fighting for Family. Lan, you tell a story of a neighborhood dear to my heart. I used to live off of 7th and Cherry. So Cambodia, I'm sorry, wrong film, Lan. We're moving to Fighting for Family. So sorry about that. So Lan, you're telling us a story about a family who's been very disrupted due to borders and basically red tape, if we want to put it very minimally. Could you tell us a little bit about the film and how you found your subject?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So Fighting for Family tells the story of a Montagnard family from Vietnam who became refugees in the United States, but are now very sadly separated by deportation. So I came to this story and was inspired to make this film due to my activism work. So I am a community organizer, and I am in community with a lot of Southeast Asian Americans who are in a very similar position to you, are formerly incarcerated, and as a result of that are facing deportation and facing separation from their families. And in my organizing and trying to get, people to sign petitions to support these community members, I was very saddened to hear that many of our own Asian American, even young folks, are hesitant to support folks who are formerly incarcerated due to the stigma surrounded by incarceration. And so I wanted to create, to tell the story of people in this situation and really humanize them, like show them in their full human experience and all their flaws and all their love, because we often don't see formerly incarcerated people, we don't see stories of them showing love, showing joy. They're really oftentimes defined by, often their worst mistakes in life. And just imagine, if any of us were defined by the worst thing we've ever done, how devastating that would be. So I wanted to share this story to really humanize the experience. And in the story, we see Chu, who is the person who is incarcerated. We see him being a loving father. He clearly loves his kids and his wife more than anything in the world. And the story, although it is so tragic and heartbreaking, I also wanted to portray it as a love story, because similar to how formerly incarcerated people are not defined by the worst things in our life, people who face oppression are also not defined by their oppression solely. So although the situation is tragic and heartbreaking, I also wanted to show the family in their joy and their love. So in the movie, we see Chu getting married to his wife. They've been calling themselves husband and wife for, I think, 11 years, but they finally got officially married. And we see their kids visiting Chu. Despite the deportation, we see them FaceTiming each other and laughing and having joy. And yeah, I really wanted to show the film to humanize these individuals, to change perspectives around incarceration, and also raising awareness of deportation, because oftentimes Asian Americans are left out of the mainstream conversation about immigration and deportation issues.
Of course. Now, this is one where you really have to develop trust, and it's trust on sort of maybe 2 points, on Vietnam side and also the family that's here stateside. How did you foster that trust in the process, and how did you decide to tell it mostly from the dad's point of view?
Yeah, I think in terms of fostering trust, I really approached this as a community organizer. So I think my involvement in previous similar cases where folks have been needing support and assistance with deportation issues, I've been sort of present in accompanying people to ICE check-ins and organizing petitions for people to get out of ICE. So I think sort of just gaining the community's trust as someone who's active in the movement. And so I reached out to Tin, who is the lawyer who is featured in the film, if he had any recommendations for a story to share, and he recommended Chu. And, you know, Chu being like such a generous and kind person that he is, he sees Tin like a brother. So, you know, if Tin recommends someone to him, he's gonna trust that person. So it's really due to just being active in the community. And yeah, Chu and Rex are just very generous and open with their story. And I think it was definitely very hard for them to share about these very personal issues. And when I asked them, you know, why share, like, I told you many times, you don't have to do this. It's just an option. You can say no at any time. Totally understand. And, you know, they tell me that the reason why they say yes, and, you know, every time they watch the film, it's heartbreaking. But the reason why they keep watching the film, going to Q&A events, is the hope that although, you know, their case is ended, we don't really know if Chu's going to be reunited with his family. They hope that in sharing their story, that we get changes in the public discourse around immigration and policy changes to prevent what happened to their family from happening to other families. So it's really a gift from them in hopes of preventing other families from going through this. And in terms of telling the story, mainly from Chu's side, I just wanted to spread awareness of what was happening. I wish we had more time. I wish I could have made a feature-length film that showed both of their stories. But it was really just access and funding in terms of like how many plane trips we could afford, and also a decision in terms of showing what it's like to be someone who is deported living in Vietnam, and not just someone who is deported, but also he's an ethnic minority. So he is an indigenous person of Vietnam. So he's sort of like twice persecuted, one for being a deportee and two for being an indigenous person, being an ethnic minority.
Thank you so much for sharing his story, and if you can extend our thanks to the family for allowing you to tell the story. It's been wonderful to sort of share or speak about this with other folks in the audience. Now let's move to another documentary, and this is also a sort of similar path of trust with Golden Boy Kitty. You're telling a story from within your family. I'm curious on how this project came to be, and how your subject felt when you approached them to tell this story. Can you tell us a little about the film and let us know, you know, how it started, the concept?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. So the subject is my dad. So I live with him. And this was a story that was told in part with my thesis for UCLA documentary. And I think, so what happened was back in March, over a year ago, my mom had a sudden aneurysm rupture in her brain. And so essentially that's just like a lot of blood loss in the brain. And it was a very sudden and also fatal event. And so approaching my senior year, thinking about what kind of documentary I wanted to make, that was kind of the only story I could really tell. Because it's so personal. As you can see, still struggling to talk about it. But my dad was actually very generous with it. He was really chill the whole time. I think he almost liked having a camera on him sometimes. And you see like the few moments in the film where maybe there's some tension with the filming, but in general, he's still very open to it. And I kind of, through the filming process, it was almost like a therapy process while going to actual therapy. But for me, it was a way to process everything that was happening, but also knowing how much grief there is surrounding that. Someone once said something along the lines of like, the amount of grief that we hold is also our capacity for love. And so experiencing all that grief, the film was a way to still highlight the love within the family.
Thank you so much for sharing this film. Can you just shed light on the Golden Boy title?
Yeah, I always thought of my dad as a golden boy because in China, we have a huge family on his side, and there's always like 30 to 40 people whenever we have a family gathering, and he is just the golden child, and it's incredibly annoying because everyone loves him, and he's like, oh, the one who immigrated, the one who now works this great job, has like a great family, therefore his daughter must also be really great, and nothing he ever did could ever be wrong. despite us having a rough relationship growing up sometimes, and so me seeing that other side of him. But I think ultimately, from the family's lens, he was always a golden boy. So that's how I decided to name the film.
His daughter is fantastic. His daughter's a fantastic filmmaker. And thank you for sharing the story with us. I'm going to bring it back to the beginning a bit and talk back to narratives, kind of continuing the theme of sort of family tensions. Emery, how did you prepare your actors to kind of bring this performance to screen? As I said previously, it's not over the top, Mom, you don't understand me. It's very intimate. Even your visual is like you're in it with them. Tell us about that process in preparing your actors and in the cinematography as well.
Yeah, in preparing the actors, I think it was mostly a kind of conversation-based preparation. I met with, after casting Kate Chang and Hua Chai, who play the characters in the film, I think we had about two to three rehearsals, and the rehearsals were mostly just, for the most part, just talking about our personal experience, and then kind of talking about as the characters, what their experiences might be. And then kind of just going through the script and seeing how the flow went. In terms of the collaboration with my DP, Jacqueline Chan, I think in the setup, we kind of wanted to also capture these feelings of kind of out of body, feeling dysphoric around things that other people might not take a second look at. For instance, like statues, like seemingly cisgender statues, in a sculpture garden, for instance, how that might be a sign of dread or fear for other folks who have conflicts inside. So working with that DP, we're kind of going for a lot of canted angles for the shots of the sculptures in the beginning, and then kind of doing, having a lot of negative space as well to kind of add to the tension through the coverage of the dialogue between the two in the film.
I love it, Emery. You know I love it. So congratulations on it. So I'm filmmakers in the What Would You Do program. I will bounce to you very quickly, but I do want to address or discuss the casting in The Chef. Mr. Lau, who plays Pu, if I'm remembering that correctly, his face, if you've seen the film, you've recognized Mr. Lau's face. Tell us how you were able to bring Mr. Lau, Jim Lau, into the project, and also a little bit about the robot. How did you cast the robot?
Yeah, we got super lucky in our casting process because, I mean, we all know like casting Asian like films is super hard here. Right. And so with the Chef's casting, we brought in about 5 actors for audition, and Jim actually came in not auditioning for the main role. He auditioned for the manager of the restaurant, and then I was like, hey, do you want to try? And then he was like hesitant a little bit, but then I was like, please, let's just try it, give it a try. And then he tried it and it's perfect. And then we also did a chemistry read. So on the same day, we were also casting the robot. And the Queen, who played the robot in our short, he was actually the first actor came into audition, and I was just like, wow, okay, so I guess I can make a film now, because originally I was like, okay, for a robot, am I gonna make a robot or am I gonna use VFX? But that's gonna cost a lot of money. But then I was like, okay, so maybe let's have an actor to play it, but then we're also not sure how to balance the robotic movement and the human touch on that same, performance. But he did it perfectly. So, and then we paired them up with Jim and Queen. We paired them up for a chemistry read, and they're amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, the robot's performance at first, at first glance, I was like, I'm in the kitchen, and then you could feel like in his speech and in his posture, I'm like, oh, okay. And then when he gets scolded, I'm like, okay, I understand what's going on. It's a fantastic sort of, how you brought us into his storyline. And when they're walking through the night market, that's when I start falling in love a bit with their friendship. So congratulations on that. And thank you for sharing the film with us. I'm going to move to some narratives now in What Would You Do? I'm going to call on Horace, director of Kashif. Could you tell us a little bit about this film and how it came about?
Yeah, sure. So I made this in my 4th year at York University here in Toronto. I was writing the script in and out throughout 2nd year and 3rd year, and it went from like being this short film assignment to eventually for my feature screenwriting class. And then when I got to 4th year, I got a chance to make a narrative short. So I decided to take some scenes from it and make a short. So it's based off of some personal bits and then some anecdotes from like other people that in my life, and I've kind of used that as a melting pot of experiences, I guess. And that's how I really that's where the ideation process came from, I guess.
When you say personal bits, I'm like, oh, is Omar part of your personal bits, or are you more Kashif in the story? Where is more of you in the story?
Definitely, it's more of Kashif, and I think that has to do with like even the relationship with dad, and then like Omar being this friend where I feel like you have a lot of friends growing up, and some of them aren't necessarily caring about your best interest or really caring for you as a friend. So that's something I experienced throughout high school. So it just happened to come into this story as I was writing.
What really sort of resonated with me, because I think I'm a little bit Kashif with Omar tendencies, but Kashif is this sort of son of immigrants and sort of just kind of wanting to get by and like be, for me, Americanized. Like I'd be like, I just want to hang out with my friends, mom and dad. I don't need to like stay and hang out and do all these cultural family things with you because I just want to kick it with Omar. What do you want audiences to sort of take away as they view the film? Are you hoping for a same sort of reaction as they're watching the film?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of both. Like at the end, like he starts off the film helping in the store, and then the film finishes with him helping in the store. So like, I mean, I guess the only thing that shifted is his attitudes with Omar, but it doesn't necessarily like take away from him making fun of his dad when he was with Omar. Like,
right.
I think it's part of the experience. So it's not like after he declines Omar's invitation at the end where he's like, oh, like I love my dad now and everything's okay. Like he still has like I think that's one of the things about being second-gen immigrant, where it's just like you're always going to be having this battle in your head of, well, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be doing this, and
yeah.
So
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I want to come back to his performance because it's really not in your face, but you're sold from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like from the incident in the store, the robbery in the store. Like I was there with him, and you kind of ride it all the way through. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Another equally strong casted film is The Other Side, and Josh Leong. You bring us to a world we don't often see, and also don't often see in short film, and you shot it on location. Tell us about the film and sort of how you brought the team together to shoot this.
Right. Yeah. So thank you. For those who don't know, The Other Side is set in Ethiopia in East Africa, and it follows two orphan brothers wrestling with the reality of maybe never being adopted in their orphanage. And so it is based on a true story. In 2018, I went on a missions trip to Ethiopia with my church, and I spent about a week in some of the boys' orphanages, and that's where I befriended a 17-year-old boy named Abel. And I got to learn a little bit about his life and his hopes and his dreams and his fears. And he told me about that when you turn 18 in the orphanage system, you graduate the orphanage, you move off and live on the streets. And so he was going to be faced with a pretty brutal life on the streets. And he was also going to be separated from a 14-year-old brother that he had that was still going to be inside the orphanage. And so, learning about that story, learning about the very real abandoned children crisis that there is in Ethiopia currently right now, where there are 5 million orphans in the country, it really, really, weighed heavy on my heart. And so that following school year, I started my freshman year at NYU, and the story was just on my heart, and I wrote a script about it, and I pulled together some classmates from NYU, and I met my producer there, Sophia Barr, our DP, Tom Ingverson, and we were able to partner back with some of the NGOs that we worked with in Ethiopia, Orphan Care Ethiopia, Great Commission Ministries. And we were able to, in 2019, go back to the country. We were able to go back to the same orphanages that Abel is actually from. We actually were able to film in that same orphanage. But this time we brought a cast, a crew. It stars Ethan Harisi. And if any of you have seen When They See Us on Netflix, which is Ava DuVernay's Emmy-winning series, he was our lead in the film. And we also casted non-actors from the country, from Ethiopia. Half the crew was Ethiopian. It was really important to us that we had the country telling their story. And so being able to do local casting, shooting on location in the country, having local actors and crew was super important. And, you know, we're really proud of ultimately how it came out.
No, you should be proud. It's very rich. It's edited so well. I'm curious on how working with actors who are not immediately from your backyard. How did you approach it as a director to sort of like, hi, I'm going to direct you to tell a story in Ethiopia, and then I'm going to go, you know, what was your process there?
Yeah, I think there was always this question as we were making the film about whether or not this was really our story to tell. You know, I am an Asian American from the United States who's coming over to Africa and making a film, you know, in the orphanages, and you know, there's remnants of, like, you know, poverty porn that you guys that we see a lot. It's very prevalent nowadays, and I think, you know, mitigating that had a lot to do with my personal experience in the orphanages. I felt that being able to go to the country, you know, a year before and have spent you know, a month there. I did a documentary web series on the abandoned children crisis. DC, which is just 15 minutes from me, is actually the second biggest Ethiopian city in the world. I feel like that kind of information helped us be a little bit more informed, be a little bit more careful about how we tread there. But ultimately, especially when working with the actors and working with crew, Ethiopian actors and crew, it was super important for us to just ensure that we were not experts on any of these things. We didn't want to be experts. We didn't want to pretend to be experts. We were listeners, and we were there to listen. We were there to let them tell their own story. You know, let them, you know, do it in the way that they really would have. And so I think it was awesome that we had both non-actors, and those were local non-actors, you know, people who, from Ethiopia. And then we had Ethan, who was just coming off this giant Netflix, you know, Emmy campaign, and, you know, being able to put them in the same room together, they just raised each other's game. It was really inspiring to see Ethan kind of be a role model for the non-actors, and for the non-actors to be inspired by Ethan. And really, I think, you know, some kids came from the orphanage. Others came from, you know, other communities in that city. But they were all able to rally around, the community was able to rally around this film. I think it was something that they really felt proud of. It's something that told their story. And something that I hope, you know, we did responsibly, so that they should all be proud of it as well.
No, congratulations on the piece, and like big ups to you for sort of acknowledging the importance and value of listening and how that informs your work. I'm really excited to see more from you later on in the years. I'm going to now move into the documentary space with Intermission, and this one is also a little bit, I imagine a lot of listening went into this, Amailina, because you've basically you're telling stories of different residents of this building. Why don't you tell us about this piece and how you decided to tell their stories?
Well, I live in downtown San Diego, and I live in a 17-story building. And, you know, I go on the elevator all the time, and I see people every day, and I always wonder who they are, where they come from, because in San Diego, you meet people from all over the world all the time. And this kind of was my way to get to know some of the people that I've always seen for like 4 years, and get to finally, you know, be like, where are you from? Like, who are you? And stuff like that. And telling their stories and picking who they were was kind of hard, because I didn't know, you know, I didn't know how to contact them. So I'd, you know, hope to see them on the elevator or something like that. And I usually did. And I'd be like, you know, I'm making this documentary. And a lot of the times their questions were, you know, why would you want to interview me? You know, like,
right.
What's so interesting about me? And to explain my film, it's about people from all over the world and how they got to San Diego and in my building. And so I have a Japanese single mother, I have a Chinese couple, and a Mexican security guard. And a lot of the times they, oh, my English is not good and stuff like that. But their story was amazing to tell. And it was a lot of listening, but it was more like, it was a gift to me that they trusted me in the first place to tell, and question them and all that.
Congratulations on it. I first of all, whenever I watch documentary film, I always wonder, like, how did they pick these people? And I usually watch first before I read the synopsis or read the bio. When the Chinese couple, I was like, oh, did they choose to wear matching outfits on that day, or was that a direction from you? I just have to know.
Oh, no. I came in and that's what they were wearing.
If you haven't seen the film, I mean, it's on our watch site now, but to see this couple and the tenderness of how you sort of photograph them, like, and you could tell that they weren't awkward on camera. They were just sort of delighted that, like, oh, this is someone we kind of know and they have interest in me, and now we're going to our apartment. So congratulations really on that. Like, were you already sort of friends with many of these folks, or it was just more of like, hey, what's up?
It was more like, hey, what's up? Like for them, it was so kind of, I actually, for the Chinese couple, it was actually hard because I couldn't find them. But I knew my security guard, and I told them, if you see this Chinese couple, they're kind of prominent in the building. I was like, if you see them, give my number to them. And then one time I was actually filming. I was filming downtown, and I get a call, and then they're like, we heard that you wanted to see us, and then all this, and I went up to them and I said, oh, thank you, and they were hesitant to film because they think that they have to have proper English or that their story won't hold or entertaining. And I think, for me, accents and stuff like that are really meaningful because it tells you, the audience, like who they are, kind of. It kind of tells you a backstory about, where they're from and, that they're not just, one language, they're multiple cultures in one person. And telling their story, I actually had a teaser, and it was just their voices, and that was actually the first time I ever met them. And they let me to their house, and I asked them questions, just basic questions like, oh, how long have you been together, where are you from, and stuff like that. And for them to trust me to let me into their house and ask those questions that some might be a little touchy about some things, or kind of just let a stranger tell their story.
Thank you so much. And if you can, please extend our greetings to your neighbors, because it is a touching piece that you presented for us. I'm going to move now. So we foster trust with our neighbors in the building. Now we're going to restart my intro for Cambodia Town Not for Sale. Brandon, you're telling a story about a neighborhood that's dear to my heart because I used to live on 7th and Cherry, and Cambodia Town is part of my 562-ness. How did you decide to tell the story? And also, I'm curious if there was any hesitation for you, to come in and sort of like broadcast this story.
Yeah, so Lan and I, my other co-director, we were born and raised in Cambodia Town our whole life. Our film portrays East Anaheim Plaza, which is in the heart of Cambodia Town, the site of a lot of like ethnic-owned businesses. And growing up, Lan and I would like come with our parents to go grocery shopping. My mom would get her hair done there. We would go to the photo studio to get our passport pictures taken. And we came up with the film around December of 2018. And that was when we first got news that the plaza was at stake, because the corporation that owns the plaza was developing plans to either redevelop the businesses or demolish it to put in like new like corporations, drive-through supermarkets there. And when we found out about that, I felt like our identity and our home was being taken away. And at first we were just gonna create like a short video, like a PSA, to spread awareness on the situation. But then as we interviewed folks, talked to different like nonprofits in Long Beach, like United Cambodian Community, we decided that we wanted to take our time with the film, and instead of like portraying our community as, like victims and ones who are victimized due to gentrification, we wanted to portray our resiliency and show that we're fighting against these corporations. And ultimately, what we want people to take away from our film is to prioritize like people in our communities over corporate profit.
That notion of wanting to sort of center resilience as opposed to sort of like woe is these folks because they're fighting, it comes through really strongly. If I were to compare it to another film, it felt similar to The Interrupters, where that's a documentary about a community in Southside Chicago where they're sort of just taking agency of like, we're tired of this situation of violence in that film, and this is how we're going to rally our community to fight with that. So congratulations to you to sort of like bring that through, because it could have easily been like a PSA of like, these are the facts and this is what we have to do to fight it. How has this film been shown in Cambodia Town, and what has the reaction been?
Yeah, so I think a couple weeks or a month ago, we actually had a film screening with Cambodia Town Thrives, and that was an event made up of Long Beach Forward and United Cambodian Community. They wanted to kickstart a project to have a community-wide conversation about the redevelopment of Cambodia Town and how community members can get engaged and just talk about like the future of redevelopment into our community rather than, corporations taking over our community. So I felt like our screening a month ago was really productive.
Yeah, the storytelling that you guys capture is really important because it helps inform the community, and those of us who are not part of the community immediately, it helps us sort of join you in the fight. So thank you for capturing and sharing it with us. I'm going to move out of documentary film and move into a different type of narrative. Stasis from Patrick Nan. You have to share this synopsis, Patrick, so folks can understand the vision that you brought out, and then I'll follow up with a writing question.
Sure thing. Thanks, Aziel. So my short Stasis is like a short reminiscence of Black Mirror, and it takes place in a dystopian parallel world where police AI interrogates innocent people for unsupported crimes. And my narrative focuses on a person called Mason Yamasi, who is interrogated by a cyborg who is seeking a murder conviction and pinning the blame on his lover, Kent. This long, complicated synopsis in a few sentences.
Well, no, there's a lot of story packed in here, and you balance it so well. If you haven't seen the film yet, guys, we are dropped into what is essentially an interrogation room, sort of, if I could describe it as such.
Oh, yeah.
And then it moves into this tender moment. I say tender a lot. This tender moment between friends, and you discover it's more. What was sort of your inspiration to kind of connect the two?
Well, it was sort of a series of great coincidences, if I can put it like that. At first, the whole interrogation room scene was inspired from my study abroad trip in Japan, spring 2019, and I learned about their legal system from some friends about the old logic of guilty until proven innocent through unnecessary means, in my opinion. And by the time my senior year rolled around, I watched Ava DuVry's When They See Us about the American legal system on the Central Park Five. And the moment I tied everything together was when my advisor at Pitzer told me that I should look at some of my previous work for inspiration, and all the dots combined, and that was for the interrogation part. As for the more tender moments outside, I was discussing with my exec producer, Giovanni Ortega, about who we would want to show and who would we want to focus on my short, and we decided that we wanted to draw parallels in the real world about how non-heteronormative relationships are looked down upon in the Asian American community. And with that in mind, we wanted to not only bring focus to the issue of surveillance from the rise of technology, but also toxic masculinity or wanting to dismantle toxic masculinity and homophobia in our communities by creating narratives that are more accepting.
Congratulations on this work. And what I like about Patrick's film, Stasis, is somewhat complementary to The Chef. It's somewhat also complementary to another film that we have called The Quiet, which is also in What Would You Do? You're telling sort of tales that do reach out into the future a bit, right? But it's commenting on sort of issues that we're dealing or still processing here in the day to day. I would like to, we're approaching an hour and I do have some padded time. So if there are any questions happening in the audience, I'm going to pray that I can see it in the chat. You're welcome to drop it in the chat, but I'll just continue a little bit more process questions. I'm going to bounce back to The Chef. Can you tell us a little bit about the art direction of the film for this narrative? I brought up the night market scene just because, I mean, you do feel that it's Los Angeles and you're not really sure what time it is Los Angeles, but I was most impressed with how you delivered the market scene. Like, what was your inspiration for that? And like, you're just so successful in communicating to me like, oh, we're going to the market. This is what's happening. Talk to us a little bit about that, Hal.
Thank you. I think like in terms of art direction, and I mean the sets in those were very challenging when we were filming because we didn't have enough resources and enough money. And how do we convey a, futuristic LA? So we're like, we're not gonna go to the fancy route to make it like a sci-fi. So we're gonna, like still be grounded. So we have an amazing production designer, Mboni, and she's African Chinese, but then she's also here in the US. So like she helped us on that. And in building the market, we were doing research in downtown LA. There were a couple markets. I forgot what's the one called in Chinatown that they have a lot of like tents above, and then some like sunlight can shine through those. So we're like, oh wow, that is that felt like almost like an underground type of space, and it's almost like forbidden. Kind of from the outside world. So we wanted to create something like that is just for, for the chef pool, for their space, for their relationship that has human touch, right? So like we built it, we were trying to find places, but then we didn't have resources. We built it on the, on campus in AFI. So, yeah, and we were, like trying to find, the bridge is downtown LA, and then the apartment was my undergrad school, which is Emerson College in LA. So we used that building and then did a little VFX afterwards. But I would say like the DP and the PD, we, communicated for a long time about how do we, in terms of color palette, with both art, with both lighting, how do we start from a neutral place, and then we will go to a brighter and warmer place, but then at the end we will return to a greener, colder space. So I think they did an amazing job. So
they did. I'm a huge fan. Kind of continuing on that thought in terms of color and sort of visual storytelling, Haris, I love how your film ends in the sort of a peaceful golden sunset from inside the store. And a lot of that is sort of, by the time I end the film, I'm already enamored with Kashif. Can you talk about the casting for your lead and also access to the store? Where is the store? Is it in Toronto?
Yeah, so the store is in Toronto, and it was, yeah, sorry, a bit of a crazy day, but I'm in the car, but not driving, passenger, but yeah, so I was searching for a store in Toronto, and the story kind of is inspired off of events that my parents used to own a convenience store in New York in the late 80s. So I was set on trying to find a store in Toronto that felt like that store for me. So it was really weird finding the store. Like I was just going all across downtown and searching, and a lot of no's. And then in an Instagram ad, I found this store that I was like, oh, this looks perfect. Found it on Google Maps, met with the owner, and he was completely cool with it. So it worked out. With casting, it was difficult. As someone already mentioned earlier, I'm sure in LA it's a struggle casting Asian actors, and here in Toronto it's the same issue. And I was using a platform called Casting Workbook. Our school had access to some union actors, and it was incredibly hard to get even like 5 people. And for the lead, I only got 2 people. So originally, my lead, Zach, he auditioned for Omar. But when I saw his headshot, I was like, no. He's it for me. So I met with him, and I was like, right off the top of the bat, I was like, he's Kashif. And it was just like working. I rewrote the script a bit after we had done some rehearsals, and it was just a lot, some improv, some written, and that's how we kind of figured it out. But yeah, he's absolutely phenomenon person, and the film would not be it without him. He went on to do some cool stuff right now. So on Netflix's Grand Army, I know he's in that. So he's an incredible actor, and I'm glad I got to meet him through the film.
Please extend our congratulations. Now you mentioned your parents, and so that's a little bit of your footprint or your fingerprint on the film. Have they seen the film, and what are their thoughts?
Yeah, they saw it at another screening, and I mean, they didn't really say anything, so I'm not sure. I mean, the relationship with the dad, it's very much a reflection of how I would be with my dad. So I don't know whether after my dad watched it, there's any bit of self-awareness to that, or whether he just thinks I wrote this thing in my head. But I mean, they said it was good, so I guess. But that's pretty much it.
Well, I'm so thrilled to sort of hear that personal, like, again, fingerprint that you have on the film, and please extend our congratulations to your actor. I'm going to keep going.
Thank you so much.
And Haris, if you have to jump, I'm like, the fake mom in me is terrified that you're in a car during this, but if you happen to jump and we don't say goodbye, thank you again for sharing the film, but stay on with us as long as you can. I have only a few minutes left anyway. I'd like to maybe move on to Golden Boy with Kitty, just kind of continuing on the parents, and if you're able to share, and be free to say no if you don't want to. I'm curious if you watched the film with your father, and what that reaction might be. Like on one level, like knowing it's a personal story, but I'd like to know what your dad thinks of you as a filmmaker, because you could see that media is present in your life, like using all that archive and photography in the film. I'd just be curious on what his thoughts are as you as a person who captures stories visually.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I had my dad and mom both watch it. And it was funny because they were watching a Chinese soap opera prior to me bringing my laptop down. And then after they finished, my mom was like, I think I like the other one better, referencing the soap opera. But my dad...
She likes the narrative better than the real life. Okay.
Yeah, it was like army and fighting and things. But my dad said, oh, like, this is really good, which is a big compliment. And then like 2 minutes later was trying to give suggestions on how to tweak things or make new edits or things like that. But even when we fight or argue, he's actually, like, we had a really big argument one day, and then he texted me saying that he watched the film again. So I think it's an interesting thing that he goes back to it, and he randomly was like, send me all the music files, which is a nod to my composer Brandon, who's incredible. So I think it's definitely a good thing in our family and in my life. And he also said something along the lines of like, oh, I have no worries for you in the future for your film career. So that also meant a lot.
Okay, Dad, so supportive. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm also curious for the other side. Josh, have you shown the film like to I imagine your cast has seen the film, but maybe sort of your NGO partners and their constituents in Ethiopia, how have they seen it and what the reaction might have been?
Absolutely, yeah. We had the privilege to, of course, share it with the organizations that we worked with. Several of our friends in Ethiopia were able to have little screenings for locals there as well. But I think one of the coolest places that we got to show this was to the Ethiopian ambassador, and his name is Fitzamarega. And so DC is, of course, the embassy is right here. And he's seen the film and he's very touched. I think it was notable that the ambassador himself had recently adopted from Ethiopia, adopted from one of the government orphanages, and that is a big very, very symbolic for the country, as currently adoption, there's a really bad stigma against adoption in the country. A lot of people consider orphans kind of cursed children, and they don't want to do that. So I think the film is having its desired effect in kind of raising awareness for that kind of crisis, raising awareness for the plight of these children, and having the ambassador watch it, to endorse it, to adopt the child is huge, for really kind of pushing through there. And I think our partners have been super excited with kind of what we were able to do. And they, particularly Orphan Care Ethiopia, after watching the film, they said, we'd love to continue to do this. And so we are actually very excited to announce that we are in development for a feature-length version of the story. We know that the short is really too small to encapsulate really Abel's entire story, what happens after he graduates, life on the streets, the things he encounters. And so, we have, after they saw the film, they got on board and were happy to kind of move forward with us as we pursue this feature. So also, if there are any filmmakers or producers or anyone out interested, we'd love to partner. You can reach out to me at josh.leong@nyu.edu.
This is the sort of thing I love at VC, and especially at Visions to Real. So we've heard from you of what's happening next. I have a few more moments, so I'm going to go briskly through the group. Emery, tell us what's next for you and what's next for the film.
What's next for me? I'm currently working on finishing up a documentary, a short film project, and then what's next for Bine is we're excited to be screening at New Fest, the New York LGBTQ Film Festival, and I'm looking forward to that because I think the program it's in is one of the collaborators is his New York Department of Education, so it's pretty cool they're going behind to show this queer film program to the youth there.
So proud of you, Emery. Thank you for sharing it with us. Let's move on to Haris, because I'm scared they're getting out of their car. What's next for you?
I just graduated from university this year from film school. So it's been a little strange. I've been writing something new, but it's just a matter of when I feel like it's responsible and safe to make a film. But that's pretty much it for me. I'm currently at Toronto Real Asian Film Festival, and I'm headlining some workshops we have there. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to Patrick. What's next for you in Stasis?
I guess after Stasis is premiering in VC, I'm excited to say that it will premiere also show in Philadelphia's Asian American Film Festival, and I guess right now I'm currently writing on my next short, but I'm also freelancing in Los Angeles as a video editor and VFX artist. So if anyone wants to hit me up, you can find me at patricknandedits.com.
Thank you, Patrick. Let's move on to Lan. What's next for you and Fighting for Family?
So with Fighting for Family, we are in the impact producing stage, which had many, I don't know where it is, had many disappointments due to COVID. But my goal with Fighting for Family is to screen it at universities and community centers to spread awareness of the issue and gain support for policy change, as well as support for the family directly.
Thank you, Lan. Lisa, what's next for you, an 80-year-old rock climber?
Well, I hate to be the disappointing one, but really that was just a project for the class, and I took that class because I wanted to document my father. He's getting older, and I wanted to be able to introduce my children to him in that intimate way with his story. So I'll be just filming my father, and it's just for personal use, but But
It's the best type of documentary.
It'll be good for my children.
Thank you for sharing it with us who aren't part of your immediate family. Thank you. Let's move to Kitty and Golden Boy. What's next for you?
I am currently impact producing a few things and working on short pieces, but hoping to bring Golden Boy eventually also to hospitals or like healthcare advocates and folks who work in healthcare, because that system is messed up and there are so many different aspects of it that really simply put screw people over. And I know my piece is a lot more personal and intimate and doesn't talk too much about the system, but I hope to really bring it to those spaces as well and talk about that.
That would be a really great tool. Just seeing your father advocate for your mom in that process would be really valuable. Reno, what's next for you, your team, and the film?
I just recently graduated from UCLA, and so right now I'm working at the Japanese American National Museum, and I'm the media arts intern, so I'm doing some video editing there, and it's been refreshing to be able to work with like just looking at archival footage. And yeah, but as for the film, I think maybe at some point, like post-COVID, we would want to film more, and they were thinking of doing another hibiscus performance, so it would be great to actually get to interview the other performers too. But yeah, that's in the future.
Thank you. And Nolan, what's next for you and Novena?
For Novena, I don't know. I still feel like a fish out of water with just the idea of festivals. So, but since San Diego residents can't view the film through VC, the film will be premiering at San Diego International Film Festival and Pat Arts' San Diego Asian Film Festival. So pretty much all my family is going to be waiting for that. And in terms of my film life, there's a few things. I've been bouncing around the idea of since like 2013. I was in high school, like a film about my grandparents' story coming here, and pretty much laying the foundation for like my family living in the U.S. now. And I have some archival footage of my grandfather and back when he was still alive that I made in 2013 before I even knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. That I might have to look into. Really bad, but that's all I got. So we'll see.
I mean, I love this sort of notion of like I made it before I wanted to be a filmmaker. That means it's part of you, Nolan. So follow that gumption, and I look forward to seeing it finished and hopefully submitted to the festival one day.
Thank you.
Let's move to Hal and the chef. The film's been on the festival circuit for a bit. What's next for the film and you?
Yeah, so we're reaching towards the end of the festival circuit, and actually starting from today, we're screening at the 53rd Stages Film Festival in Spain, and right now we're also developing the feature version of the chef. And for me personally, I've been developing the chef and also 2 other features. Because I don't call myself a writer-director, so I always work with writers. And right now I'm actually 2 weeks out from directing a short film for Disney. It's called the Disney Launchpad program. It's also for diverse filmmakers.
Congratulations on that. I look forward to seeing more from you. Let's move on to Amailina. What's next for you and intermission?
I agree, or I have the same ideas a lot of Nolan. A lot of his stuff, like the grandparents and stuff like that, is like, because my grandma's Filipino. My grandpa, he met her in the Philippines. They have a lot of, my grandpa, he films everything, so it's always like that little, like, I can use that. But I created my film over the summer for the Pacific Arts, the people who host the San Diego Asian Film Festival. I created it from that program, and from there I kind of got connections to like the directors of the San Diego Filipino cinema here, and I'm a part of and members with them. And recently I might be getting a job as an editor for another photography arts company. And
nice.
Well, I'm 16, so I'm kind of just going with it.
I didn't want to like put it out there like that. I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah. Can you say the age again, Amailina?
Oh yeah, I'm 16.
Congratulations. And the fact that you're getting gigs, you know, before I was able to get a license is like huge. And you have a long path of success I see in front of you. So congratulations. And I look forward to seeing more work from you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to Cambodia Town Not for Sale. Brandon and Len, what's next for the film and what's next for you, Brandon?
Regarding Cambodia Town Not for Sale, honestly, like this film festival was like the end goal. So it's like really an honor to screen this film here. But after that, like I don't really have any plans for the film. But at least for me, I recently graduated from UCLA this past spring too. I'm currently just freelancing, building up my portfolio to hopefully go to grad school in 2 years. And right now, I just applied for VC's Arms with the Camera Fellowship. So just fingers crossed on that too.
Fingers crossed, and I wish the best for the preservation and the sustainability for the neighborhood. And I'm sure filmmakers like you and everyone on this panel will help sort of keep that going. I think that wraps it up for me. And if my Zoom tech god Marvin could bring everyone to gallery view, I want our audience to see you guys as a whole combo program. I want to thank you all for sharing your works with the festival. And again, if you're in the audience, please tell a friend to come check out the films. It's #Life2020 and What Would You Do 2020. It'll be part of our festival watch site until the end of the month. If you like this conversation and stuck around with me for this whole time and you like our festival programming, please consider donating to Visual Communications. Support from y'all helps us keep the squad going all year round. If you want to see more programming like this, check out C3 next week, and you could see our whole entire film schedule at festival.vcmedia.org. And you could follow us on social media at VC Film Festival, or just follow the hashtag like I do, because I'm lazy, #LAAPFF 2020. That's enough talking from me. I'll see you guys later. Bye.